Let's get to Mark Mix, President, National Right to Work Foundation, CEO. Mark, thanks for being with us. Thank you for your patience.
Oh, no problem, John. I've been interested to listen and hear Steve Bannon and hear you. Of course, always interested in hearing you talk about what's going on, not only in Washington, D.C., but around the country. So thanks for the opportunity.
You guys are now in the front lines. Right to work is on the front lines. The communists are taking over. They want to unionize everything. They don't want to give people the option to do anything. They don't want to give companies the option. Give me kind of the national picture on right to work now.
Yeah, John. Well, look, 26 states in the country have right to work laws. They're very simple. We believe that workers should have the right to join unions if they choose to do so, but should never be compelled and forced to pay dues or fees just to get or keep a job. 80% plus Americans believe that's the right way to go. But being right's not enough, John. And this is your point. This is why we got to be involved. And Rob's call about grassroots being involved. And you've seen evidence of it in this last legislative session in Virginia. You saw the Commonwealth of Virginia, not only elected officials on the Democrat side and the Republican side rise up and grassroots rise up. Thanks to your help, we stopped a bunch of nonsense in Richmond related to labor policy. Right now, President Trump wants to put people back to work. He wants to bring jobs back to America. His policies are working in that regard. And building an economy here in the United States where we provide opportunities for people to feed their families and take care of themselves and join that American dream is a really important part of his agenda. And that flows through the National Labor Relations Board. It flows through the Department of Labor. And so those appointees and the actions the president's taken in that regard are making a difference in helping to create an environment, not government dictating, but creating an environment where opportunity and people can risk capital like you do every day, John, and as an entrepreneur and building something that allows people to expand themselves and their families and take care of themselves. I think the State of the Union is good. The president thinks about this all the time, not the state of organized labor union, because they got problems, John, because they rely on compulsion and force as their business model. That's not going to work for them. It hasn't worked for them. And the president understands that. He's in favor of the American worker, but he's not in favor of force and coercion. And we've got a couple of little battles that are coming up right now on the federal side, like the Secretary of Labor. He took the advice of Sean O'Brien, the Teamster president, for his first nominee, Lori Chavez DeRemer. You and I opposed that. You helped us get opposition out nationally, but she got confirmed, and she turned out to be an embarrassment, not only to President Trump, but to Sean O'Brien. This time, it doesn't appear that O'Brien's making any recommendations, and he's nominated Keith Sunderling, who's been at the Department of Labor for a while, and we've got that battle in front of us. So that's what we're fighting for now.
You like him?
Yeah, so far, so good. I mean, it's hard to like a bureaucrat, John. We should hold all of them, just a little bit on the edge because it is the federal government. But the good news is he is going to oversee a department that's budget has been reduced by $10 billion since 2025 under the president's budget recommendation for the Department of Labor. If he can get the same efficiency and effectiveness out of that institution, spending $10 billion less, we're in favor of that.
We were both right on the former Secretary of Labor. She was horrible.
Yeah. And, it's really unfortunate the president took that advice. And I'm not sure it came directly from him, but we do know that O'Brien went to Mar-a-Lago with Chavez DeRemer, who was one of 3 Republicans to vote for the repeal of all right to work laws across the country, and just said, yeah, maybe we'll throw a bone to these folks. Well, the unions aren't throwing bones to President Trump. They're not. They're opposing him. And I suspect, John, if the political winds do change and they take control of the House or the Senate or the White House in 2028, that all this quote unquote goodwill that we're seeing will dissipate and disappear as they try to go government one more time.
It's all gone. I mean, you're 100% correct. There is whenever you collaborate with them, whenever you do bipartisanship, right? As soon as they gain maximum power, that all goes out the window. They could care less. That's why keeping the filibuster so stupid, because, if they get power, that thing will be gone in 15 minutes. They just don't care. Mark, what are some of your top priorities in Virginia and across the country right now?
Well, in Virginia, we've got a fight to go that we're going to get ready for the next legislative session. We think they're going to try to come back and do full-fledged monopoly union bargaining for all government employees in the Commonwealth. We were able to surprisingly have put that thing to bed, at least for now. The repeal of the right to work law, we'll keep our eye on that. That bill didn't make it out of Senate committee, which was good news. Right now, we're preparing for November. I mean, obviously, Americans need to know in this grand experiment of self-government where the candidates stand on important issues. And so we're doing a survey of all the candidates running for office for the House of Representatives, the U.S. Senate, and for the state legislatures across the country, asking them a very simple question. Do you believe workers should be forced to pay union dues to get or keep a job? Yes or no? And for the ones that answer and the ones that don't, we make sure that people in their districts know exactly where they stand on the issue of forced unionism. That's a big program. It's a major program. It's underway now. We started back in January as the filing dates came and the primaries came. We don't advocate for the election defeat of any candidate. We don't endorse or support any candidate for office, but we will let their constituents know where they stand on forced unionism. So that's the focus of our efforts right now. We've got some state legislative programs in Montana and New Hampshire where we're looking to expand the number of states with right to work laws to from 26 to 28. We'll work on that. And then we've got some states where we've got some trouble, like Arizona and Nevada, where Democrats are talking about trying to repeal the right to work law. And of course, we got Virginia in 27, which we'll be back in touch with you about that, John, as we prepare for January in the Commonwealth.
It's coming. And this is the thing. It's like a cockroach. You step on it and then you lift your foot up and it crawls away. I mean, you never kill them, right? They just keep coming back. And then you got to get a bigger and bigger antidote. But you guys have done a super job in protecting right to work all over the country, especially in Virginia, because you really look at Virginia when they took over in this landslide. I mean, right to work looked like a lost cause. It looked like we had no shot at stopping that. Also, the monopoly collective bargaining. I mean, I don't think anybody gave us a chance to stop that. And we were able to do it because we went to the grassroots. It shows you when you go to the people and you bring them something that makes sense, they'll help you. And I think that's what happened.
Indeed, John, and that's the secret. I mean, we often think that everything happens in Washington, D.C., but as the late, great Senator Everett Dirksen from Illinois said, when I feel the heat, I see the light. That works in politics. It works in marriage, too, by the way. Just FYI, John. Maybe Ann knows, taught you about that. But that's our job. Our job as constituents is to create the heat so that politicians know, because the first thing they think about after getting elected, John, is how to get reelected. And they will look and take the temperature and feel the wind, whatever way it's blowing. And if you don't affect that wind, then you're out of business when it comes to being part of this grand experiment in self-government. I like to use the analogy of motorboats and sailboats. Every legislative body's got motorboats. You can't do anything about that. They know where they're going. They set their course. It's the sailboats that make the difference. They're the ones that are depending on the wind. And it's up to John Frederick and his listeners and our Right to Work members to create that wind that forces them to go the only direction they can go. And that's with the wind and with the heat that's being created by the grassroots.
Mark, what do you think of all these communists winning? Bannon just called them Marxist jihadists. Kind of an interesting perspective. I don't necessarily disagree with that after hearing what he had to say. What do you think of this? Where are we going with this?
Yeah, well, John, that nomenclature is something that I really worry about because we talk Marxist, jihadist. People don't understand it. When we say the word communist, that's something people recognize. At least my generation does, because we went through the Cold War. We went through the Cuban Missile Crisis. We went through all of the perestroika and all that stuff that was part and parcel of every night's media and the news cycle. Now it's Mondami and the socialists. I mean, they are designed to create government with power over everything. That's real simple. I don't know what you call that from an academic or ideological standpoint, but what we do know is wrong. And we know it violates individual freedom and liberty, which is the core foundation of this country. And, when you think of Mondami in New York, I was thinking about this morning as we were preparing for the show. Joe Biden's Secretary of Labor was Julie Su. She never got confirmed. She was the acting secretary for almost the entirety of his presidency. And you know what? Where she is now? She's the economic advisor for Mondami in New York. And so personnel matters. Personnel matters to policy. And when you think about the structure of Mondami setting up, building government grocery stores, rent-free apartments, those things have been tried again and again, and they've failed everywhere. Since 6,000 years ago, those ideas have failed. And they'll fail again. But we have to live through it again, unfortunately. And I hope, John, that we wake up about this, whether it be in Minneapolis, Minnesota, whether it be in New York City, whether it be in Los Angeles. People are finally getting tired, and I hope the reaction is a good one back to more freedom, more liberty, and more protection of individual rights.
How dangerous is the illegals that have come into this country that are now dominating these major cities, Bannon saying that 3.5 million of the 8.5 million New Yorkers are foreigners, foreign born. I mean, I was kind of shocked by that. I hadn't really realized that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, John, when you go back through the history of immigration to the United States, back in the 1980s, it was Lane Kirkland, the president of the AFL-CIO, that was trying to get the border secure. I mean, they understood the impact that on union workers across the country by people coming across the border illegally and doing work that they shouldn't be doing. And now you have organized labor from almost every direction. Organized labor is in fact, yeah, we got to open up the borders. We can't prosecute these people. We got to keep them here. I mean, the politics of this are very interesting if you study it when it comes to organized labor and how they've reacted to it over the years. But it is dangerous. I mean, we only have to look over the Atlantic Ocean to Europe and see the damage it's doing to those cities and those countries there. In bigger context than just labor policy, in basically cultural existence, frankly, and what's happening in Great Britain, what's happening in Germany, what's happening in Spain. I mean, you can see it, and somehow it looks like we don't pay attention to it. But I think the president's paying attention to it. I know you're paying attention to it too, John. So it is damaging, and you have to have a border. You have to have an immigration policy that's regulated and adjudicated, and it's someone who takes control of it. You can't open the gates. And that's why this Supreme Court decision was really devastating, the one that came from last week, the birthright citizenship thing. Those are issues outside of I'm getting out of my lane here, John, but I think your point is well taken. From a standpoint of back to organized labor and rank and file workers, you've got to control the border, and this illegal immigration has been a real problem.
Mark Mix with us, got a couple more minutes. Mark Mix, the president and CEO of the National Right to Work Foundation. Mark, let's just be candid. Going forward, why is organized labor now in support of open borders and not deporting these people, which drives down their own wages?
Yeah. I don't understand it, John. I really don't. And you go back in the history and you look at them being one on the forefront of this battle of controlling the borders. Look, it's about revenue. Their revenue stream is dues, and the more workers that come in, the more they can organize workers, the more dues money they're going to have to spend on politics. And so, when you think about the hierarchy of union officials, and John, you and I have talked about this before, the disconnect between rank and file workers on one hand and union officials on the other. And this is a direct result of the power and privilege granted by federal law that gives them control not only of your pocketbook from a standpoint of keeping your job or getting a job, but also your voice by saying that you can't talk to your employer directly. Only the union official can. So the idea that they have a business model that allows compulsion and force basically makes them unaccountable to the very people they claim to represent. And that's the disconnect in organized labor. Samuel Gompers said it best back in his final speech in 1924, I think it was, in El Paso, Texas. He said, "The workers of America adhere to voluntary institutions. If you use force and coercion, you will destroy a movement that on its own, through voluntary means, will be strong and powerful and help workers across this land." They have violated the Gompers creed when it comes to voluntarism and unionism. And they'll tell you, well, nobody can get ahead. Well, we're down to 5.9% union density in the private sector now, John. That's not a winning formula for them. Compulsion's not working. Force is not working. You've got to allow workers to hold union officials accountable. The only way you do that is by controlling their pocketbook.
Mark Mix, you absolutely nailed it. Hey, thank you for being with us today. People want to follow you, Mark. Where do they go?
Well, John, they can find us on that amazing internet at www.nrtw.org for their questions about their legal rights in the workplace. If they have questions about legislation or want to know what's going on in their state, the committee's website is nrtwc.org, nrtwc.org.
Great to hear from you, Mark. Great to see you. You look great. You look great, by the way.
Well, thank you. You do too, John. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate that.
Pennsylvania Posse coming up next. Keep it right here.